What's up everybody, it's Man of Low Moral Fiber here. My name's Luke, and in this video I will be playing Melee Zero at Overpower level 8, and I'll be taking a run through Digistruct Peak. My friend Striker will be coming with me, and he will be playing Melee Zero as well. What we're going to do is run through the entire map here. They've recently, in a February patch, actually fixed the old grenade jump that allowed people to skip to the final area before the boss of Digistruct Peak, over down here to our left. But that's just been patched, so they don't let that happen anymore. So as Striker and I run through this, I'll be giving you some insight on different strategies and stuff that we employ throughout the run, because I know some people may be looking for some information now that it's not quite as easy to skip through all of this. Now every area can have a number of different spawns that can happen, and obviously some spawns are going to be better than others. This one in particular is very good for Zero. We end up getting 3 of these tank enemies to start, and since Zero can have Boar, he can easily one-shot those enemies, and that works out very well and usually allows for a quick completion of this first area, especially if you have multiple Zeros like Striker and I do now. Striker is a very, very good Melee Zero player. I think he's the best personally. I will definitely leave a link to Striker's channel in the first line of the description. But he's also one of the recommended channels on my page as well, if you see him over there in the sidebar. So if you would, take a chance to subscribe to his channel as well. He puts out some really impressive content. Once you've finished off the first wave of these enemies, you get 1 more tank enemy that spawns, and then 2 spider ants. We weren't able to fully bore the spider tank there, or it's actually a bar tank, I believe. Bar tanks are just a little bit tougher than spider tanks. However, they are still fairly weak, and if you do go ahead and blow them up with Boar, or at least blow up their top half with Boar, they're usually less than an execute away from death. So that's pretty cool, and those enemies never really pose too big of a problem for Zero. Was able to get the execute on that spider there, and now we'll be moving forward into this second area. I think this is actually the hardest area of all of Digistruct Peak, I'd say. We got the kind of lucky spawn where nothing spawns in this first area of this second area, or this first half of this second area, I'd guess. And when that happens, there's always going to be a constructor that spawns up here. In Striker and I's practice, he's usually the one that goes up and executes the constructor, and I just try to get a little bit of damage on it beforehand so that he can make sure and finish it off with 1 execute there and continue his mini must fall chain for safety and whatnot. I usually try to take out the turret as well with the Pimpernel. These slagged Centurion ants can be a very, very big problem for Melee Zero, because it can make it to where you cannot strip your shield, and if you try to, you actually go down at overpower levels, so that's pretty rough there, and so you have to pay special attention to those enemies. Same with the slagged skags, although those aren't quite as tough as the slagged ants. They actually have a little more health, but you don't have to hit them in quite as specific a spot as you do with those ants. Also, I've noticed the slag dogs aren't quite as good at slagging you as the slag ants are. The slag ants have an area of effect slag attack that is very, very effective. Now, Scorch is, I think, the hardest part of all of Digistruct Peak, for a Melee Zero anyway, because the fire damage over time and having to execute them in the butt can be kind of difficult to do and pull off at times. So I know I have fire damage over time now, and I was going to try to go ahead and get an execute on Scorch, but I knew I didn't have time there. It looks like Striker went ahead and got a 1-shot on his first Scorch there, or on his Scorch on that first execute there, so that's really good. Like I said, Striker's really, really good. I was trying to strip my shield here, but this ground wasn't cooperative, and Scorch kind of rolled away. It's not too big a deal, though, because Striker is excellent, and he's going to go ahead and own Scorch for us. So that works out really well, and we'll be moving on to the next area now. Now, this next area is actually quite small. It's always going to be Dukino's mom and a few mob enemies, sometimes midgets, sometimes other little skags. Sometimes you have to kill all the little skags before Dukino's mom will spawn. Other times she'll spawn as soon as you land, with midgets spawning at the same time. That's actually what happens here. So we'll try to stack our kunai and get as many good backstabs on Dukino's mom, try to take her out in a quick and efficient manner here. When she does these jump attacks, you can kind of get underneath her and just melee her as soon as she lands and be back above health gate and stay healthy and alive that way. Sometimes she spins a little too much and you're unable to get backstabs, and that's unfortunate because backstab is definitely a very important part of your melee damage formula. I know that we're going to have to kill probably a dozen or so of these midgets as well, so I'll kill them, some of them. It allowed me to get some extra kunai for a little bit of extra kunai damage on Dukino's mom here. I don't think it allowed me to stack above 80% for me personally, but the kunai do a fair amount of damage themselves, especially if you have roid damage activated. So I'm just taking out some of these midgets because they give me, more kunai and obviously more mini must fall chain. We were able to take out Dukino's mom fairly quickly there, and we should only have a few more midgets to go ahead and take out before we can move on. This next area, I'd say, is probably the easiest area in the whole map, but still, give it some credit. You can definitely die in this area. I'm not saying I've never died in this area, but I will say, given an average spawn, this area is probably the easiest compared to the other areas. The Black Queen is definitely not the toughest of any of the bosses they have, and usually this first area just consists of a few exploders, marauders, and maybe a couple surveyors. Sometimes, though, you get some slag ants that spawn and stuff, and it can be a little bit tougher. But I appreciate that this area is kind of a small reprieve between the tougher parts of the actual run, so that's pretty cool. Gonna go ahead and get slag on both of these Black Queens now. Striker was able to one-hit that first one. I go and try to get a one-hit on this one here, but I missed the critical by a little bit. Looks like I was still able to do about 30% damage to it though, so that's pretty cool, and we'll be able to take it out fairly quickly. Again, my kunai are doing quite a bit of damage because they happen to have roid with them. I was able to finish off that Black Queen with my second execute there. Gonna have a few more of these little ants to take out. They are pretty low health, but they can be kind of difficult to melee sometimes because they are so small. Luckily, we were able to get through them pretty quickly. This next part, I feel like people underestimate quite a bit. This is the Bonehead area, and depending on the spawns, this area can be quite tough, especially in multiplayer, where the turrets that can happen have more than enough health to stick around long enough to bother you. See, Striker was taking out some of the turrets there with his Norfleet, and it actually happened to take out a couple Boneheads as well. So that was pretty auspicious for us, and it worked out well. But like I said, you have to be very careful about these turrets that can spawn up on this train. That's what makes the area kind of difficult. That and Bonehead is usually throwing elemental grenades. So the combination of those turrets and the damage over time from multiple Boneheads can be kind of a pain. If you sneak back here into this onion area, though, it can provide a little bit more safety for you, which is really nice. So I'm going to kill this Bonehead, or I guess Striker actually got the kill with the interfacer. Recover my health with the chain lightning, and then go ahead and advance back into this area. Like I said, that little area back there can just provide a little bit of cover, especially from the turrets, because if you get below the little bridge there, the turrets can't get to you, and that's kind of important because those turrets can really tear a hole in you. This next area is not too bad. This is the Doc Mercy area, obviously. I'd rate this, about equal with the Black Queen area. These are definitely the two easiest areas. Go ahead and get slag on that surveyor. I take most surveyors out with a Norfleet most of the time, just because surveyors are the most irritating enemy to me. They can definitely be a pain to get a melee hit on if there are no enemies left for them to try to heal or provide a shield for. So, the Norfleet's definitely a good option to exercise on them. Other E-Tech launchers can work as well, though. I kind of like the Malawan non-legendary E-Tech launcher. I think it's called like the PF or the PBFG, something along those lines. It's basically a Norfleet that only shoots one orb at a time instead of 3. And it works out pretty well. You can be a little bit more accurate with it. And it's pretty good for killing surveyors as well. I use it in single player sometimes. In multiplayer, though, I usually use the Norfleet because surveyors do have a little bit more health. This area between Doc Mercy and the assassins can actually be a little dangerous. You can sometimes get multiple badass loaders that spawn here, and that fire damage over time can really be a killer at overpower levels, so you have to watch out for that. Right now we have a couple, or a few, I guess, marauders kind of giving us a little bit of trouble. I would have liked to get a one hit on that one, but he wasn't slagged, and I wasn't able to get a backstab on him, unfortunately, because of his kind of awkward placement. But once I get my deception back here, I'll go ahead and finish him off. Make sure he's slagged with the slag Pimpernel is what I was doing there. The Pimpernel has, effectively the highest chance to slag out of any weapon in the game, even more than the Grog Nozzle, because it creates 5 extra pellets that all have that, I think it's like 40% chance to slag, something like that. I should probably know that off the top of my head, but I don't. Try to pay attention to it the next time I switch to the Pimpernel. Alright, this next area can be really dangerous, partially because of Wreath, his fire damage over time, the third assassin. He has a very, very intense fire damage over time that can definitely cause some trouble. I've seen entire teams go down trying to kill this one little guy here, so I always prioritize him pretty highly. Make sure I don't die to the fire damage over time myself. Sometimes all these assassins can spawn at once, and that's kind of dangerous, but with Striker, that's actually the spawn I prefer because it allows us to get through the area really quickly, as opposed to dealing with some of these mobs. But this spawn worked out pretty well for us, and we didn't really run into any trouble in here. It's definitely one of the more treacherous parts of the map. I'd put it up there with the Scorch area and the Bonehead area, ranking... I'd say I put it even with the Bonehead area and the Scorch area, just a little bit tougher than this. One thing that can be irritating in this area is that the surveyors will fly away and can take a little bit of time to come back. Luckily, though, we have those Norfleets, and we're getting pretty good at taking those guys out. Now we have Roof and One spawned. So I'll let Striker try to deal with Roof while I try to get some damage on One here. Looks like my first execute, I executed right into his giant back nomad shield there and actually didn't do any damage at all. So that was kind of lame, and it looks like Roof is kind of avoiding Striker, but he's in killing blow now, so Striker will finish him off pretty soon. Go ahead and get a pretty decent execute on One here, and then I'll go ahead and try to finish him off with melee spam. He's in killing blow now. Unfortunately, he's not slagged, so I had to hit him like 6 or 7 times there, but I was able to kill him, so that's great. Moving on into this next area now. This is the Saturn area. Saturn's pretty tough boss, and you have to fight 2 of them after all of this. The most difficult part of this, I'd say, is the transition between mobs and Saturn, because if you kill the last mob and you're in a bad position, these Saturns will start to spawn and shoot lasers at you, and that can work out very poorly for you. This is another area where the tank enemies spawn quite frequently, which is really good for Zero because those are super easy to take out. I definitely try to apply slag to all the surveyors that I can, as it allows us to take them out easier. And anytime I can get an execute on a surveyor like that, I definitely appreciate it. Got another surveyor over here, so I'll try to get slag on it. Go ahead and finish it off with my Norfleet. Get kunai on that surveyor there so that Striker will be able to damage it and get a second wind, hopefully. Oh, no, never mind, I took it out. He was able to get a second wind off whatever he killed there with his Norfleet, so that worked out really well for us. Alright, now there's just a few enemies left, so we want to kind of take note to our relative position in relation to cover, as Saturn will spawn as soon as we kill this last spider ant. So I'm definitely going to have to kind of run to cover. I don't have Deception active or any movement speed bonus. Luckily, though, I was able to go ahead and get to an area where I could recover my health, switch to my Corrosive Pimpernel, and go ahead and start getting damage on Saturn. If you listen closely here, you'll hear Striker go ahead and tear a hole in the first Saturn. He actually killed it there with a good bore shot, and he's doing mad work to the second Saturn before I actually even get a shot off. So that's pretty cool there. Now we'll go ahead and use our Corrosive Pimpernels to do damage to Saturn. pushing him into killing blow range as quickly as we can. Once we know he's in killing blow range, either of us can finish him off with a good execute. We'll go ahead and apply Death Mark to him, though, sometimes when we're shooting him with the Pimpernel, as it does add quite a bit of extra damage. So I finished Saturn off there, and we'll be moving on into the final 3 areas now. We have 2 more mob areas, and then the boss area, and then we're actually done with the run. Should probably go ahead and re-equip my Norfleet at this point, because I have my Corrosive Pimpernel equipped, and I will probably need the Corrosive Norfleet, as there are quite a few surveyors ordinarily in this next area. This area is another one of those areas that isn't too tough. Nothing too awful bad that can happen here, except you can get quite a few turrets that spawn over on the stairs over there. However, if you pay attention to where you are, you can actually be near some buildings or behind that little dumpster, and you're able to take those out without them doing too much damage or having too good a line of sight on you, which works out pretty well. Those turrets can actually end up being more dangerous than, your average enemy. So the turrets start spawning now. Definitely try to get slag on these guys, and then I'll go ahead and assist with the Norfleet bombardment so that we take all those out before they do too much damage to us. We have a few slag dogs now. Slag dogs, much like the slag ants, can be a pain in the ass, but they're not too bad. Went ahead and shot my Norfleet there to take out that surveyor. No use in doing damage to the slag dogs while there are repair surveyors about, because slag dogs ordinarily take more than 1 execute, and if you were to damage them and then have it already repaired by the surveyor, well, that would just be a waste of time. So that's why we definitely take out these surveyors before we deal with those dogs. Now we have 1 more mob area to go, and then the final boss. This last area is usually fairly tame. There's quite a bit of cover down there. However, some people do get overwhelmed if the turrets show up over there on the train and quite a few surveyors spawn. But surveyors in this area aren't that bad, because you can just go hang out up by the vending machine once you have it down to just surveyors, and the surveyors will actually fly into a wall and eventually kill themselves. So that, is an easy way to take out those surveyors in case you're out of rockets or just at a loss on how to maybe kill a badass surveyor in this area. Sometimes you can get the ultimate badass loaders, a few of them to spawn right there in between the houses, and that can be a little bit dangerous, but it's not too bad. Try to get slag on these surveyors as quick as I can. They're sitting there kind of still for us, so I'll go ahead and finish them off with our Norfleets there. Looks like we have 1 more surveyor to deal with. Striker and I aren't interested in waiting on it to die, so we'll go ahead and finish it off. Now we just have to fight the binary boss up here. Now, this is kind of a shame, but every time I fight this binary boss with Striker, I mess it up. I end up blowing up its top half without doing too much damage to the bottom half. But when I do it solo, sometimes I kill this thing in 1 hit. So I always feel bad, and I should probably just let Striker try to bore it instead of me, because I always have bad luck when we do it co-op. I actually mess it up twice here, I think. So I get slag on it, shoot it at what I think would be the right spot. It only does about 30% damage. Luckily, this particular tank boss actually regenerates his top half, so you just kind of have to wait for 15 or 20 seconds or whatever until he regenerates his top half, which allows Zero to do more easy bore damage to him. In the meantime, though, I'll do some Corrosive Pimpernel damage to him just for kicks. Try to go ahead and get another bore shot on him now. Don't do too great a job. Luckily, he is getting lower to about almost into killing blow range now, so that's pretty cool. Try to get slag on the boss, and I'll try to get an execute on it now. I noticed that sometimes he's very difficult to melee. You slide past him, and sometimes he doesn't seem like he takes appropriate melee damage. I'm sure he resists it to an extent, but I'm not sure how. Go ahead and get kunai on it again here. Looks like he's regenerated his top half again, and Striker went ahead and finished him off with a good bore shot. Like I said, I should just let Striker bore it when we play our co-op runs. However, this run worked out very, very well, and it was very excellent all the way through. I'll go ahead and show you guys my skill build and the gear I used in this run. If you guys haven't yet, please take the time to subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. And please check out Striker's channel as well. Like I said, I'll leave a link to it in the description. Again, guys, thanks for watching, and I hope to catch you next time. Bye, guys.